Sacred Deities of Ancient Egypt unravels the daunting complexity of the Pantheon, making it accessible and meaningful. Today, everyone makes photographs with their cell phone, myself included. My prints, such as this image chosen for the cover of the book, are the result of months on site and years color balancing and composing in the studio. In this print, the goddess Hathor embraces the pharaoh as she welcomes him to the land of the blessed dead. The Sa hieroglyph in the lower right-hand corner represents protection. Our contemporary interest in gender and identity makes the exploration of the attributes of both the feminine and masculine deities in the ancient Egyptian pantheon intriguing, informative, and relevant. A Sem priest wears the pelt of a leopard, creating a link between the divine masculine and the raw, instinctual power of the leopard, whose head he wears on his bare chest, and whose claws brush against his bare arms and legs. The beautifully articulated wings of the goddess Isis enfold the pharaoh. Over time, this feminine deity, known for her formidable knowledge of magic and her compassion, became more widely worshipped than any other divine figure in the pantheon. Today, we live in a cultural vortex marked by an evolving search to understand and appreciate the complex nature of our human sexuality. The sun god Ra fused with the falcon god Horus, known as Ra Horus of the double horizon. Hathor, in her role as mistress of the West, tenderly holds the hand of Queen Nefertari, who bears the healing eye of Horus on her arm. The stream of images that follows is designed as an invitation and introduction to some of the ideas and images that inform my book. Written from the perspective of an artist with a deep and abiding interest in the psychological roots of symbol and metaphor, Sacred Deities is informed by insightful ideas about the nature and origin of archetypal imagery. Let me now introduce you to the two ladies, the principal guardians of the pharaoh. We are in the presence of Nekhbet, the vulture goddess. Her imposing size, long neck, and powerful curved beak allowed her to plunge her head into the very heart of a rotting carcass and feed on its decaying flesh. Nekhbet's counterpart, Wadjet, the cobra goddess, portrayed coiled on a basket, supported by Djed pillars, symbols of eternity. Her venom was lethal and her presence fearsome. Imagine for a moment a vulture circling a corpse as she slowly descends to feed on its rotting flesh. Imagine the lethal venom of a rearing cobra and an ancient civilization in which the word for mother could be written with a solitary vulture glyph. The divine feminine, embodied in the two ladies, created a sacred vessel that paired ferocity with fecundity and fertility, and the capacity to bring forth new life in the face of death. In the earthly kingdom, pharaohs were more powerful than queens. However, a small number of queens ruled as kings, Hatshepsut being the most famous. Traces of pigment on a colossal stone fragment articulate her expressive eyes, nose, and mouth. In the world of the gods, the aggression of feminine leonine deities was formidable, while male lions embodied the regal nature of the kingship. Sekhmet, whose name meant the female powerful one, she was a ferocious, feminine deity whose epithets included Avenger of Wrongs and Lady of Slaughter. In this pantheon of paradoxes, when Sekhmet was propitiated through rituals and offerings, she became a beneficent, healing deity. The pharaoh as the Sphinx, wearing an atef crown and holding an offering basket in his slender human hands. A portrayal of Ruti, whose name means twin. The Ruti lions guarded the rising and setting sun, a liminal, transitional time filled with danger. Startling in its graphic brevity, the painting appears to anticipate our contemporary graphic sensibility. An exploration of the intertwined stories of Isis, Osiris, their magical child Horus, and their arch-enemy Seth. The book's thoughtful interpretations deepen the meaning of the violence and sexuality found in their mythic stories. Isis, great of magic, crowned with her distinctive throne emblem, Isis was known for her compassion, her devotion to her consort Osiris, and her knowledge of magic. Osiris, her beloved consort, portrayed as Lord of the Underworld, his dramatic green skin symbolizes rebirth. Horus, their magical child, a falcon god, Horus was conceived after Isis fleetingly revived her beloved consort Osiris, slain by his brother and his rival to the throne, Seth. This central mythic theme lies at the heart of the mythos of ancient Egypt and embodies a fusion of Eros and the sacred. The rejection of Eros and the sacred led followers of a different religious tradition, Coptic Christians, to erase the memory of Hathor's sensuality. Her eyes, nose, and mouth were gouged out so that she could no longer see, breathe, or speak. The many forms and faces of the deities. Hathor, the goddess of love, music, and revelry, was a complex, multidimensional goddess who took many forms. Hathor, portrayed as a beautiful woman with cow's ears. Hathor, in her role as mistress of the West, welcomes the dead to the afterlife. Alone in sacrosanct tombs and temples never intended to be breached, I sometimes had the uncanny sensation of being seen. This image evokes that uncanny and unforgettable experience. Masculine deities also assumed multiple forms. In this image, the sun god is portrayed as a male figure with the head of a ram. He is accompanied by his soul, a ba bird. An arresting portrayal of the sun god as a mummy, a symbol of rebirth. A red disk, symbolizing the birth of the sun, adorns his chest. He is protected on either side by a rearing serpent and a crocodile. In this remarkably complex pantheon, rich in dualities and paradoxes, the central reoccurring motif is the promise of life after death. Enoch, the symbolic promise of eternal life offered to the Pharaoh. With each inhalation, the Pharaoh breathes in the promise of rebirth. Rays of sunlight illuminate the four sides of a light well in a small, dark chapel ceiling. The figure of Osiris is depicted lying on a leonine bier. The rays of the sun bathing his body contain the promise of rebirth. As a solo traveler, an older woman in her late 60s to early 70s, a cultural anomaly, I faced formidable challenges, working without a flash or tripod, the dimly lit interiors of tombs and temples also posed daunting technical challenges. I believe the combination of these experiences contributed to the intensity and intimacy of my photographs. In the spring of 2020, a time marked by the ravages of a deadly virus, may we remember that we share an experience with an ancient culture, one that was unprotected by many of the tools and insights of our time. Above all, may we remember that in the precarious world of the ancient Egyptians, the symbols of creation and rebirth were a recurring motif that endured for thousands of years. Written in an engaging and informed style, Sacred Deities of Ancient Egypt is intended for Egyptologists, Egyptophiles, and all those drawn to mythology, the nature of metaphor, psychological concepts of archetypal imagery, and the visual arts. I invite you to further explore the ideas and images in the richly illustrated chapters with evocative titles including The Nature of Soul, Divine Masculine in the Pantheon, Birth of the Sun, and Serpents, Chimeras, and Fetishes.